I'm Tangie Pettis, and I'll tell you how I recruit next on the RecTech Podcast.
Welcome to RecTech, the podcast where recruiting and technology intersect. Each month, you'll hear from vendors shaping the recruiting world, along with recruiters who'll tell you how they use technology to hire talent. Now, here's your host, the mad scientist of online recruiting, Chris Russell.
All right, it's time for another edition of RecTech, the only podcast that helps employers and recruiters connect with more candidates through technology-inspired conversations. This episode of RecTech is sponsored in part by our friends at HireTool, the recruiter's best friend. HireTool's AI engine is a personal sourcing assistant that works for you 24/7. They have a new version out, version 3, with a new reporting dashboard, email marketing campaigns, and in this new feature, you'll be able to automate and track email response rates, which is pretty cool. They've also redesigned the toolbox area to include more AI automation and updates to their Boolean string builder, which includes GitHub updates. So if you want help with your sourcing, you'd be wise to check them out at hiretool.com. It's HireTual.com. All right, and just a few show notes. Reminder: the show is now syndicated on the HR Podcasters Network. If you head over to hrpodcasters.com, you can find this show and discover over 20 more that cover nearly every topic in HR and recruiting. We just had another show today, in fact, called Mind That Works from a Hong Kong-based HR site. So that was interesting, and lots more topics from recruiting to HR to employment law, all available at hrpodcasters.com. All right, on to the show. As an award-winning and innovative thought leader in the talent acquisition field, Tangie Pettis has spent over 19 years as a strategic recruitment business partner within some of the most well-known companies and organizations across the nation, including Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Home Depot, DaVita, Charlotte Russe, Aeropostale, and Vanderbilt University Medical Center. She has a dynamic approach to candidate sourcing, process design, and implementation. She's also an active speaker and author in the recruiting community, often called upon for her expertise in candidate and hiring manager engagement. Her current role is talent acquisition manager for Aspen Dental, and she joins me now on the phone from Dallas. Hey, Tangie, welcome to RecTech.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Looking forward to the conversation today. So, first question, what's it like recruiting dentists? We haven't talked about that subject yet on the show. What's that like so far?
It's definitely hunting and finding the perfect world.
Yeah.
I love it. I've been recruiting in healthcare out of my 20 years of recruiting for about almost 3 years now for dental. But in healthcare, I've been in this sector maybe about 13 years. And I got to say, these 3 years have been the most challenging and rewarding because it's not easy to do this. Dentists have, as of last year, 0.4% unemployment rate.
Wow.
So it is a challenge that I take on every day wholeheartedly.
Yeah. My cousin's married to a dentist. He just graduated, I don't know, a few years ago. And I know he was looking for a while. Then I think he bought his own practice eventually up in Massachusetts there. But so if you want his number, I'll give it to you later.
Yeah, I just might need his number.
Awesome. All right. So first of all, how many dentists do you have to hire each year? What's the kind of volume we're talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, that can really vary depending on our new office opening, targets for, the calendar year. So, just in general, I mean, that can be in terms of company-wide, that can be in the hundreds in terms of numbers of dentists that we would have to add.
Wow.
I can tell you on average, Aspen Dental is opening a new practice every 5 days. If you just do the math.
Wow.
Over 38 states right now in terms of offices that are branded by Aspen Dental. So a lot of growth out there.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so all right, so it's a hard niche to crack. I mean, how do you pitch potential dentists to join Aspen? What's your kind of what's your selling point there? And
so, Chris, I have to say my selling point is really different for each doc. I mean, it's about that conversation and finding the gap that we can fill. How is it that Aspen Dental fits into what is going to line up with, what's next for this doctor? One of the things that I absolutely love about Aspen that I'm proud to talk about with dentists is giving them the clinical autonomy. I mean, so often, when a dentist can go into a practice that they don't own, they really have that concern of not being able to do the dentistry they went to school with, to learn. And Aspen Dental, they truly have the clinical autonomy to do some comprehensive dentistry. And then being able to have career paths, those are other things that I think, especially this newer generation of dentists coming out of school, it's not about just being a dentist, but it's like, what does my future look like after I become better in this field?
Mm-hmm.
And Aspen can offer that.
Yeah. There's
a pathway from associate dentist, which is coming in the beginning, and moving from that to a lead dentist or managing clinical director. And then even ownership opportunities, and that's huge. Like your friend in Massachusetts,
mm-hmm.
he could have opportunity to own with an Aspen Dental branded practice.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, dentistry come a long way. My daughter's had braces, right, and her orthodontics office is like this factory of just chairs lined in a row, and dental hygienists assisting the two doctors basically. Just lined up. It was, it's incredible how kind of far it's gone for. When I was a kid.
Yeah, in and out. I've had braces 3 times. We won't go into that, but so I've been in that factory mill at least 3 times.
Yeah, no, I had braces when I was adult in my 30s, so I know what you mean there.
That was the 3rd time in my 30s.
Okay, nice. So how does one source for a dentist? Tell me about sort of the tools, sites, techniques you might use to find them.
Yeah, it's really kind of I would say, full spectrum all over the place. There's no one gold mine. A lot of dentists don't have a large social media footprint.
Right.
So, absolutely, I do look out there on LinkedIn and Facebook. That's not my, big time winners. What I can say in this field, it is a lot of networking, nurturing long-term relationships. We do a lot with academic relations with the universities mm-hmm. where dentists go to school. And even from just their first year of school, keeping that relationship going to build that pipeline. Other things, it's old school stuff, simple things like cold calling. I do use HireTool quite a bit. That helps me to cross-reference some great things in terms of, finding out what other social media platforms they're on so that I can go and find them out there. Another thing that I use is sync.me. It's an app that I have on my phone.
What's it called?
It's in this field. It's sync.me, sync.me.
Okay. What does that do?
And it's an app that you can download on your Android or Apple phone. And absolutely, I love the fact that you have a lot of options. For example, you're going to be able to use it as what I would say like a social caller ID. So when someone calls you, whether they're in your contacts or not, with mm-hmm. sync.me downloaded, you're going to get not only a picture of them, but you're going to also know which social media platforms that they're on.
Oh, interesting.
And so, as a recruiter, you're going to get a ton of calls a day, and then from people you don't know, and it's a good way to connect with them. Not only that, but once those profiles are updated, in sync.me, you'll get an alert. It'll tell you, pictures of contacts have been updated. And so there's a free and there's a pro version. I have now the pro version because I can get a full report, mm-hmm.
which
really helps me out, where I'm able to find not only where they are on that platform, but if there's an additional phone number. So,
nice. So what is the cost of that?
It's $19.99. But of course, I bought this a while ago, so don't. No, for the year.
Okay, that's nice.
But don't quote me on that because I bought my sync.me right. pro version a while ago, so I'm not sure what it is today.
All right, don't quote our audience. Okay. No, appreciate
don't
that.
Quote me.
Yeah, appreciate that. I love learning about new tools. That's one I haven't heard of yet, so definitely appreciate it.
And you can search numbers too, Chris. So, for example, on the free version alone, if someone calls you and you just have the free version, you can put that number into the database, which is over 1 billion numbers, mm-hmm. and it will pop up with what social media platforms they are and who that number is attached to.
Nice. I just, speaking of apps about your phone, I just installed something called Robo Killer, which is pretty cool. It actually,
nice.
It basically blocks all the spam calls, right? They have a huge database of these spam calls out there, and it sits on your phone, and it basically, when a call comes in, it checks that number to see if it's in their database, and so it'll stop it. And what's funny about it is that it has like these pre-made messages, right? So you can set it to like a guy coughing on the phone or something, and just drive that spammer crazy when they pick it up. So it's like $3 a month, and it's totally worth it.
Oh wow, love it!
Yeah, Robo Killer is the name. Awesome. Well, appreciate that. I want to go back to your pipeline thought for a second with the schools. You talked about nurturing them a little bit. I mean, tell me more, expand on that a little bit in terms of how you do that with a student. Let's say they're a sophomore in college in dental school. I mean, how often are you talking to them? What are you doing to talk to them? Things like that.
Yep. So at Aspen, we have an academic relations team, and we partner with them by attending events throughout the year to keep that engagement going, and that could be with the talent acquisition team, academic relations, and of course clinicians that work for Aspen already, because it's good to have that clinician-to-clinician dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
From the recruitment side, there's things that I do in terms of just frequent check-ins. I keep calendar updates, especially with those conversations that start to go a lot deeper, and that this person will be someone that could eventually be part of the Aspen Dental team.
Right.
You're going to keep in contact with them. Regular check-ins for personal moments. Like I said, sometimes I'm checking up with them via Sync.me. Sync.me gives me birthday alerts. It's even as simple as wishing them happy birthday. Little things that go a long way are finding out from the school calendar what events are going on. So whether it's testing, spring break, it's just anything I have moments to have another layer for conversation,
mm-hmm.
so that I'm not coming from a sales point of view, but from a genuine place. I'll look for that opportunity.
Nice. Okay. What do you guys use for ATS there at Aspen?
We use iSums here.
Oh, okay. Very good. Anything particularly you like about that platform? Any feature? Or?
I think it's really robust. The number of leads that we have in the system that are dentists, it's searchable. I love the sourcing feature in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of work in that in addition to things I do outside of the system, and it's always good to cross-reference. So I do all of my sourcing. I get all pumped up, and I might find some names out there and get some contact information, and I'll go into iSums, and I'm like, oh, man, they're in here already. Or it's like, I found one out of the 60-plus thousand,
Yep.
So either way, it's a win, but I love the functionality of iSums. I mean, I didn't have any exposure to iSums prior to coming to Aspen.
Yeah. What'd you use before that?
So before that was a smaller system, but prior to that, I was a Taleo girl.
Yes.
Taleo advisor. I mean, I was the trainer at every company, and so it took a mindset shift to adjust to the iSums layout.
Yeah.
But the functionality and the view and the use and the ease of it, I'm like, how did I use Taleo all those years? Well, I used it because it worked great, and it was all I knew. And there's nothing wrong with Taleo, but I do like iSums.
Gotcha. All right. Fair enough. So you spoke at Sourcecon this spring in Vegas, right?
Right.
Yeah. You talked about winning over hiring managers. So let's dive into that a bit. So just initial thoughts on difficult hiring managers. I mean, what was kind of the thesis of your talk there?
Yeah, some quick tidbits that I gave about that part was that, for one, we have to start seeing our hiring managers as people. We can get wrapped up in our workday, especially when they're difficult, and we can forget some common things. And so I shared with the attendees that hiring managers will want a lot from us, but they have a little bit of time for us. So their day has this big picture, and in it, we're this small spectrum of it, right? But as recruiters, all of our day is all about everything we need from the hiring manager. And if we can just get away from that interaction of taking things personal and focusing on what you can do to serve them best as a recruiter and start building the trust in little ways, that's when the dynamics of the relationship shift. Another thing that I shared was treat them like we treat candidates? What about that great candidate experience? How we try to engage the candidate, we try to connect with them and give them things that we find that we might have in common to lighten the conversation. I challenge the crowd to start doing that with their hiring managers. Find out fun things about the hiring manager or hobbies or things that they might have in common, and do those sourcing things on the hiring manager that you do on your candidate. So, check them out on Facebook, check them out on LinkedIn, or find out what Think.me platforms you can find out that they're on. And that's where you start finding a common ground, and then you can ease into those working relationships rather than being so transactional.
Yeah. Yeah. Any examples of that from your careers in the past, from either, a bad relationship you had with a hiring manager that you turned into a good one?
Yeah. So, one of the stories that I always think about is there was a hiring manager that literally, it was just hard to catch her to do anything. She couldn't make the recruiting update calls that I was scheduled with her. She couldn't give me the updates that I needed, and it was just like difficult. And so I told the crowd, I said, sometimes you just got to ask the question, how can we work better together? And it was so simple, Chris. She told me, she was like, I don't have time for weekly update calls. I just don't. She's like, I don't need an update with you every week. If you have something new, you can reach out to me. Right. I was like, really? But, you just think every week we got to do this. This is how it is. And so when I started to work with her, how it best worked for her, and it still served my need, things just changed. Like, she became one of my best advocates, because I would just shoot her an email. She would reply back with what I needed. We did strategy sessions. I was able to get the details that I needed from her, and it worked in the way that was best for her. And I took that into my recruiting career, and it's something I do with every hiring manager I talk to. I ask them, how often do you want to be communicated with? How? What's your best method? Do you want me to text you? Do you want me to email you?
Right.
What works best? And it's the simple things. Just ask. Yeah,
that's a great tip, great story, and a great example, I think, of how to approach it. So appreciate that. One thing I've seen in kind of the Facebook chat rooms lately is stuff about the intake meeting, in terms of just, being able to, accurately describe what they're looking for, the hiring manager's looking for in the candidate they want to hire. Any tips around that you could offer us?
Yep. One of the big things that I've changed, it's wordplay, is I started to call it strategy session instead of intake meeting, because right there I'm saying that I'm not going to be taking orders on what you need from me, but we are going to build a strategy on how we both can partner together to find the best fit for this open role.
Right.
And that's one game changer. One of the other things is to define the purpose of why you want to talk to them. And I think when hiring managers really hear that it's not about them just spending some time with you, going over this position, answering these questions, it is really so that you can find the best fit and you can be a partner. That's when it changes. And I also update my managers and let them know, we're going to do this when you have another opening. It might be the same title, but the situation at hand, why this position is open, is going to be different. And I need to be updated on that. I need to check the climate of where we're hiring the next person, why the person left, what can be better. We want to just make sure we're all in sync on that.
Yeah, okay. Let's take a quick break, listeners, so I can tell you about our other sponsor today, which is Robo Recruiter and their recruiting chatbot technology. Their PALS campaigns will update and refresh stale databases for you. They'll reach out to your contacts to gather accurate, up-to-date information on candidates, price, availability, location, skills, along with other desired information. They also collect and return information on dead mobile numbers, email addresses, so you won't waste time in the future with some of those. Robo Recruiter does the dirty work for you, gathering and organizing candidate information automatically, so you can spend time having the conversations that matter. And you can learn more at roborecruiter.ai. So, Tangie, what's your most creative sourcing story that you can tell us? This is one of my favorite questions of recruiters. Take me back through the years. What's one candidate you're most proud of finding in terms of a creative way you did that?
Yeah, so I would have to say that this goes way back to when I did dialysis nurse recruiting, and I had to find a nurse to work on an Indian reservation and live in FEMA trailer housing for the duration of being employed there, because not being part of the tribe, she couldn't live actually on site.
Uh-huh.
So that was one of the more difficult things to do. And I searched high and low, and tons of cold calling. I put all kinds of spins on how this would be great. And so what happened was I happened to start doing some sourcing with travel nursing. So I started to look and delve into that world, because I thought those are transient nurses in some ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this might be a more comfortable setting for them, or easily to transition into. Didn't get any wins, but then what I decided to do was just go very basic. So I actually called where the tribe was located, and I found out that they have, I can't remember the proper name for it, but they had on site, it's like an administrative building that, where everyone within that tribe could go to for basic stuff within the community. And I talked to them, and I told them about the exciting need that was coming, in the area, and that I was a recruiter. And I wanted to know if I could just post something with them. And they had this clipboard, kind of corkboard thing, and I created a PDF with marketing, posted that there was a need. Someone in the tribe knew a friend of a friend that had a travel nurse coming off assignment,
mm-hmm.
and was open to that area. So I reached out to the nurse. We had a great conversation, hit it off well, and she went through the interview process and got the job.
Nice. What state was this in? Like Oklahoma,
oh my gosh,
or Arizona somewhere?
No, yeah, it was on the west coast, where there's a heavy Indian community.
Nice.
This was so long ago,
yeah.
But it just sticks to me. I'm thinking, wow, I had to find a dialysis experienced nurse to work on an Indian reservation and live in FEMA housing.
That's pretty unique. That's pretty unique. Were you corporate then, or was that a third party thing?
Corporate.
Corporate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you didn't get a fee. All right, awesome.
No fee, just happiness and smiles and relief.
Placing in Canada is the reward.
Yeah.
Nice. Couple more questions for you, then we'll wrap this up. Is there a tip that someone gave you recently that you would kind of reshare with us about recruiting that you want to maybe pass along? Something you learned, could be a tool, could be a tip. Anything come to mind? Gosh,
there's been so many, but I'd have to say most recently I attended the ERE conference, and the opening keynote speaker was Janice Bryant Howard, and she made us remember that the candidate is the center of our universe. And she made us just think about that, everyone in the room. And she said, when you're doing this job and you're recruiting, that you have to think about that the candidate is the center of the universe. And if you think of that, everything else will just follow. Everything that drives you in recruiting, everything that you do for the candidate experience, for the hiring manager. And that just really resonated with me, and because I'm all about a great candidate experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's the most relevant thing for now that is sticking out with me.
Yeah. That's it's all about them, right?
Yeah.
Gotta make them happy. Speaking of candidate experience, just talk briefly about that, how you approach it there at Aspen. I mean, is there, are you kind of actively, trying to tweak that experience every day? What's that like so far? I mean, from either the just applying to a job or onboarding, things like that. Anything you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, Aspen does a great job with candidate experience just as a whole. Our recruiting function, in my opinion, I feel has nailed it. We all share that same commonality. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to just keep the candidate engaged, having little wow moments along the way to make sure that they see you as someone they can trust and keeping that connection. There's something that we've coined here. One of the lead talent acquisition managers even has made it his phrase, but it's called the white glove treatment. So it's all about how do you keep that clean and pristine, just concierge type of service with each candidate that you bring in, and we all strive for it. So I'd have to say not much for me to tweak. I think I'd have to say it makes me happy that I fit in because it's something that I'm so passionate about, and they're already doing it here. Nice.
Well, it sounds like you guys are on the right track. So, Tangie, appreciate the time today. A lot of great information. Thanks for that tool, sync.me. We'll link to that in the show notes. Thanks again, and tell everyone where to connect with you online.
You can find me on Twitter at Tangie Recruiter, and also can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Tangie.
Thank you.
That will do for this edition of the RecTech Podcast. Thanks again to our sponsors, HireTool and Robo Recruiter. Don't forget to subscribe to the show via iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and Stitcher Radio. For social media shoutouts, please use the hashtag RecTech. Thanks for listening, and remember, always be recruiting.
Another episode of RecTech is in the books. Follow Chris on Twitter at Chris Russell or visit rectechmedia.com, where you can find the audio and links for this show on our blog. RecTech Media helps both HR tech firms and employers to get more clients or candidates through our consulting practice and online tools. So be sure to check out our sites like recruiting headlines, job fairing, and more to stay up to date on what's happening in recruiting. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon on the next episode of RecTech, the Recruiting Technology Podcast.